As Anita said, I'm one of the co-founders of Respect Public Schools Washington. Dana is my co-founder on the side there. I'm a parent at Emerson Elementary here in Everett, so is Dana. And Lifewise Academy came to our school about 2 years ago, and they are still here. And we are more than just parents, we are grandparents and guardians, and we have clergy members who are also supremely opposed to what's happening, and concerned community members, taxpayers, and we all come together and work to fight Lifewise in our state. Who or what is Lifewise Academy? Does anyone know who they are? Have you heard of them? Oh, great. I'm sad that you know, but I'm so glad that you're here. They claim to be an interdenominational Christian education or character building association. They are not. They were created, their curriculum was created by the Southern Baptist Convention, which, as you know, has a very unique and very narrow worldview. They have documented ties to Moms for Liberty, Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. They're part of the overall Christian nationalism movement, and very specifically, they're also tied to the hate group, whose name I always get wrong, the Family Research Council. They do view students as their mission fields, and they are based out of Ohio, and they are one of an RTRI program example, but there are many more. They just happen to be the biggest and most successful. They're in about 34 states now. What is RTRI? What is RTRI? It stands for Release Time for Religious Instruction.
Can you say that again?
RTRI stands for Released Time for Religious Instruction. A court case in 1952 before the Supreme Court of the United States was ruled on, Zorach versus Clausen, and this makes it legal. Any parent can take their child out for release time for instruction, but that allows parents to take kids out for Ash Wednesday if you're Catholic, for Yom Kippur if you are Jewish. You can leave early on Fridays during the winter if you're Muslim, and for any other reasons, parents are allowed to take their kids out. And Lifewise Academy has taken this 1952 court case and sort of driven their bus through a big loophole. And I should also note that it is legal to do this, but it's not a constitutional right. Go ahead. There's 5 things that the Supreme Court case stated that RTRI programs must follow. It has to be opt-in. There are no public school funds to be used in its promotion or in any way or circumstance. It's not to be held during core classes. School districts have to maintain a neutrality, so they have to treat religious organizations the same way that they do non-religious organizations, and they also have to host their programs off-site. So in reality, what this looks like at Emerson Elementary is that parents have to sign up their kids and they have to give a permission slip once a week to say that these named adults can take their kids out. They are taken out for recess and lunch. That's a 40-minute block. They're bused a half mile away from Emerson Elementary, and then they're bused back. They do this 2 days a week. Not every grade goes at the same day, but it's 2 days a week that they disrupt our school and cause division. Go ahead to the next slide. They are influencing legislation across the country. They're based in Ohio. In the fall or winter of 2024, Ohio changed its state law, which said school districts may allow RTRI programs to operate, to school districts shall. That means that in Ohio and states like Montana, Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana, and Iowa, school districts no longer have the right to say no. And there's restrictions, especially in Ohio, where Lifewise Academy is based, those restrictions are getting narrower and narrower. At some point, they were allowed to dictate all of the terms that Lifewise Academy must follow, and the district has slowly been eroding those restrictions. They're taking them out. In some schools, they're blatantly disallowing, or not following, I should say, the rule in which they're not allowed to promote it. It's becoming part of class curriculum that goes out to parents, and they can choose it as part of their class schedule. And so far in Washington, we don't have any law at all. The applicable court case here is in 1959, Perry versus District 81. They cite Zorek versus Clausen in supra, which means that they just take the whole thing and they say, we follow it, all of it. I will say one thing that is important to note, that in the Washington case, they specifically point out that no announcement of any kind was permitted in the public schools relative to the program, which is super key. There are some districts in Washington that say they cannot advertise at all. There's a third-party app called Peach Jar, and like Boy Scouts of America, sports programs after school, other things like community potlucks, all of those things can be advertised through Peach Jar. And one school district, I believe it's Peninsula, is stating that because they're following Perry versus District 81, that they cannot use Peach Jar to advertise Lifewise, and yet in Everett, they are allowed. Everett's district enrollment is, I don't know, in the hundreds now, or just over 100, I think now. In Peninsula, where they're not allowed to advertise, last year they had 2 students. One student was a public student, the other kid was homeschooler. So it's important that we try and educate our districts on what's happening. Go to the next slide. I'm sure you're not surprised in the background that I've told you that their curriculum was created by the Southern Baptist Convention, that they're not really that enthusiastic about supporting all of our students. We listed just 2, Everett and Mukiltey's statements on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm going to demonstrate how they absolutely do not follow our state policy, or school policy. Go to the next slide. They claim that individuals who are LGBTQIA+ are living in sin and angering God. God's word tells us that anything different from this kind of romantic relationship between a husband and a wife is sin. All sin angers him and makes him sad. God wants us to turn away from sin and do what is right. That's their view. They don't even like divorced parents or grandparents or anyone who does not fall within their very strict view that a legitimate parent group or family group is one wife and one husband who are married to each other. And they go further. They claim to build character, but what they're really doing is trying to convince children to submit to authority, and version of authority. Pay attention to this last sentence. When faced with a choice to obey God or our parents, we should always obey God first. And it's God as Lifewise Academy defines it. Go to the next slide for me. They also claim that their goal isn't to really proselytize to their students, but this is taken from a 5th grade curriculum. Sharing the good news. Draw yourself into each scenario above. What would make it difficult to share the good news there? Could you do it? Why or why not? Why are we asking elementary school students how to proselytize to their classmates? What? Go to the next slide for me. Thank you. So what are we doing to stop this in our schools? Actually, quite a lot. We are in the middle of this summer trying to reach all 295 school districts in Washington. So many of them have never heard of Lifewise Academy or RTRI, Zurich versus Clausen, Washington versus Perry 81. They don't know. So we are hoping, it is our goal by the end of the summer to reach all 295 districts so they can at least have heard who Lifewise Academy and other RTRI programs are before school starts, before it is too late. We are encouraging them to adopt an RTRI policy which will prevent Lifewise from infiltrating our schools. But they have to be told about it first. We are meeting with lawmakers. I have also met with the office of the Washington State Attorney's Office, and we are meeting with schools, public education, policymakers, such as, well, not policy makers, but decision makers, such as Washington Association of School Administrators. We're speaking up at school board meetings. Anyone can join and anyone can speak up, and we can help you do that. We are also on social media through our website and blog posts and Facebook, and we are collaborating and supporting other national organizations such as Respect Public Schools Washington, the Secular Education Association. We are in constant contact with the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the Western State Center, and here in Snohomish County, Indivisible. And I will end my presentation with a call to action that I'm hoping that all of you can help us do. We would love if you could help reach out to all 295 school districts this summer. We've reached out to 136, I think.
No, we have 136 left.
Oh, we have 136 left. You go to the next slide for me.
131.
131. That is not written well. 131 out of 295 left to go. We need your help to do it. We have a template. We have the school board contact. We have the superintendent contact. And all you have to do is let us know that you would like to help, and we can assign anywhere from 5 to 10 or more letters. You can copy, paste, and send them. And then we'll ask you to follow up in like 2 weeks' time. We have discovered that that squeaky wheel helps. Most of our responses that we've received from school districts is because we've contacted them more than once. Please also contact your representatives. Our state legislators have never really heard of RTRI. It's kind of a new thing in Washington, or at least it's a new thing in Western Washington. And they need to know. And here's our presentation source material. Everything that I've talked about has been documented. You can use this QR code. It will take you to this page which has all of these resources on them, or on it. So, I'll give you 2 seconds to do that. And then I will open it up for questions.
QR codes on your website?
Yeah, well, the QR code is here, and I'll ask that Anita holds it up for at least a few minutes, and it'll bring you to the page on our website. Yes, you have a question?
In talking to a neighbor like a year ago, they homeschool. I'm pretty sure they tried to get something going in the legislature about homeschooling getting some state money, something like that. So I think they've kind of started working on the legislature.
I'm not surprised at all. I think Rod back there has questions.
Sure, behind me. Here we go.
I was wondering, I think that part of that lawsuit that Lifewise put against the Everett Public School District said that Lifewise is being restricted from attending. It's some kind of like an event that the school district holds every year. It's like a fair or something like that. Maybe you know a little bit more about that. Have you considered, or are you going to set up, say, like a booth, an information booth to counteract what Lifewise is doing when they attend certain events related to public schools? Does that make sense to you, Jennifer?
It does.
Okay.
So for those of you in the room who do not know, Lifewise Academy is suing the Everett School District. Everett School District followed the law. They created their own parameters about how they would release students. Again, they have to do a weekly permission slip, which Lifewise feels is too cumbersome for them. They want one for either the whole semester or the whole year. And our school district has also said that if a kid doesn't want to go on a specific week, they are not forced to go. And they really want to be able to advertise in our lobby. They are currently allowed to advertise in that third-party app, Peach Jar, but that isn't enough for them. They also want to be able to put flyers up in our lobby. They want to show up at like job fairs or community events where other community organizations are on our school grounds. What are some of the other things that they want to do, Dana?
The community resource fairs is a big one.
Yeah, the community resource fair.
Yeah.
And so they filed a lawsuit, and sometime in the spring, a judge granted them almost everything that they asked for in their injunction.
Go figure.
As an injunction.
As an injunction.
As an injunction
The
until
court
trial.
case will not be heard until April, but in between now and April, the school district has to basically bow to whatever Lifewise Academy has demanded. There was like one rule or one thing that they asked for, but the judge felt it was too vague.
Oh, Bibles and backpacks.
Oh, yes. Bibles and backpacks is how they're branding it. They're claiming that the school is forcing these kids to keep their Bibles in their backpacks all day, and they're not allowed to take them out, which is not really founded. We haven't seen any sort of actual documentation, but students in elementary school have free time, and they're allowed to bring books from home, and they're allowed to read them. The challenge is that Lifewise Academy has been asked to put things in envelopes, so candy, QR code invitations, all of these things are not supposed to be taken out of their backpacks during the school day. We do have actual definitive proof that shows otherwise. Yes. Here's a question.
I've got a mic coming over here, and then I'll bring it over here.
I'm curious what effects this activity is having on the other school kids as they observe certain groups being marched out and riding away in buses. If they're, what the talk is, if you hear as mothers from other moms or kids.
Yes, I will answer your question, but I heard from over here that Rod that I didn't properly answer his question, which was, Respect Public Schools, there's not a whole lot we can do. We're a grassroots organization, but we have not filed for a 501c3 for a wild variety of reasons. So because we are not like a tax identified unified organization, we wouldn't be allowed at something like a community resource fair. And your question about how that affects other students, they see these kids go on a field trip. They come in their shirts that say Lifewise Academy on them. When the kids come back, they're super excited. They got free pizza, and they got candy, and they have all these things, and that is sort of the whole point, is that kids feel left out. I will also tell you that for the first time this past year, when my child was in 3rd grade, was the first time that my child came home to me and said, "What do I tell my classmates about why I was gone yesterday?" I had taken my child to a religious service, and he didn't want to tell anybody that he was there because it wasn't the Lifewise Academy view of what religion is. For the first time, my child has wanted to hide his religious views from his classmates, when before he was very proud of who he was, his entire being of who he was.
You said that they hand out like pizza and candy and whatever. What if a child going to the meeting is diabetic or has medical issues and eats the candy or pizza and gets sick? Is there anything a parent can do? I mean, I'm not one of those parents. My niece is diabetic, and that was always our whole family had to be aware of what she could eat, could not eat, and all the restrictions.
I can't speak to what Lifewise would do, right? But I can tell you that from the school district perspective, once that child is signed out of school, it becomes he, she, they become the responsibility of the adult now in charge. That's it. That is where they claim their responsibility ends. So if there is an accident with a bus, if a child gets lost, if a child is hurt, injured, otherwise has a medical emergency, school district says, not my problem.
So what do they do if a child has a diabetic emergency?
I mean, I would hope that Lifewise Academy is asking on their enrollment program if your child has any sort of medical issues, but I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Yeah, you said that they use a recess plus a lunchtime. Been a while since I had a child in grade school, but typically those don't fall together, right?
They are now. So we have
For all the students?
For all students, they implemented it about 2 years ago. That recess is immediately followed by lunch. And they back it up, and I believe them, that for a child's development to have that break in time where they don't have any responsibilities and they can just sort of like reset and be with their friends and have some sort of downtime, and to expend all of that energy and then feed them so they also come back with a full belly and can reset and have school. But by doing that, yes, now they have a 40-minute block. And I should also say that I mentioned in the thing that no core classes are allowed. So that's also part of why they do it during recess and lunch. In the state of Washington, all classes are considered instructional time. And technically, recess is considered instructional time too, but they've made this exception here.
Yeah, I was wondering about dress codes. Do they allow Sikhs to wear turbans? Do they allow Jews to wear Yom Kippur?
I've never heard of any restrictions during school.
Muslim women wear the whole get-up?
I mean, presumably
Okay,
our
nobody's
school.
making a fuss over that.
No.
All right, I just wondered. That's about all I've got, but yeah, I just think that there were riots in New Jersey in the 1800s over which form of the Lord's Prayer they would use, force the kids to say in the morning. And I just think if parents really want their kids to say the Lord's Prayer, you do it before you go to school.
We would say so too. I mean, like, as I mentioned, I'm a religious, spiritual person. I do not, except for like religious services once or twice a year, our religious instruction is after school on the weekends. And we highly encourage parents to practice their religion outside of public school hours. We are very much against any RTRI program, whether it be from our faith, someone else's faith. We don't believe that religion belongs in public school, period.
Okay, you folks in the middle are testing my ability to be that limber, so I'm gonna come up from the back, and here we go.
Sorry. I have heard, and maybe you can speak to this, that there have been situations where the kids are brought back to school late, and so when they come back into the classroom while the teacher's trying to get the classroom resettled for instruction, these kids come in and it causes disruption and loss of instructional time. And also that sometimes kids have come back and have said that they did not get lunch.
Oh, I haven't heard the second one. I've definitely heard the first. They do arrive late occasionally. And even when they arrive on time, they're on a different wavelength, right? Like, these other kids have just had recess, they've just had lunch, and they're coming back and they're getting ready to learn. Whereas these other children who went to Lifewise Academy did not get the same opportunity. They are being taught on the bus to where they go at the church, to being taught during the church, at the church time, during their lunch, and then they're being taught all the way back on the bus again. They're not ready for instruction again from their teacher, and they are being disruptive.
I was at a school board meeting in the fall or winter about this topic, and I thought I heard someone mentioning something about a child who had been left unsupervised or something like that. There was some problem.
Nationally, it has been noticed as a problem. Here in Everett, they lost a child. Now, they assure us that it was just 10 minutes, and it was because the child ran back and went on the bus again, but that's 10 minutes of not knowing where this child is. So yes, it happens. And in another state, I believe it was Indiana, they left the Lifewise Academy program, left the child at the church in the bathroom. And this child had to walk a half a mile, and very fortunately for everyone involved, a very kind, conscientious man found her and walked her the rest of the way to school. That could have ended very differently, as we all know. But yes, the child that got lost for 10 or 15 minutes here in Everett, it was also just handled so dismissively. The Washington State Director was telling this story in a podcast, and they laughed about it and called this child a hellion.
I have a question, sorry. 1992, I was a student teacher in rural Oregon, and I taught earth science, and in my class once a week, students left to go to a portable on campus and were given religious instruction. I was told to excuse them from all assignments that they missed during that time. I'm curious, obviously we were breaking pretty much all 5 of those conditions. How are those enforced? Who is the person, or what is the mechanism for actually making sure that those are followed? Those things you mentioned, like option only, no school funds, all of it.
I mean, the first line of defense, of course, is the school district. I mean, there is no way that any school district should have allowed that to happen. But we're also looking at school districts in Ohio where it is mandated that the release time happen during school, but they're also breaking the law in allowing them to publish it as part of a school curriculum of options for class. There are other districts that was just uncovered by our Respect Public Schools National group that documented, I think it was in Indiana again, that they sold a piece of school property to Lifewise Academy for like $1. There's another district in which they were leasing the land, and the Lifewise Academy is going to build on that that land. When the founder of Respect Public Schools National asked them about it, suddenly the whole project was canceled. So sometimes it can take just a parent asking the right question to the right person. He had asked, his name is Keith Comer, and Keith had asked for a public records request and found all this information out, reached out to the district, was heard from by the attorney, and wouldn't you know, the very next school board, like, the project had been canceled. So, but to answer your question, anywhere along the chain can prevent it. School district, number one. School board, another one. The state attorney office should know. Here in Washington, OSPI, the Office of State Superintendent, should know. All of those, like our legislature, should also know. And I just find that so shocking.
I have two questions in the middle, then I'll make it up to the front.
What are the teachers allowed to say
Nothing.
in their
No.
own private time?
In their own private time, I have heard rumors of some teachers being supportive of Lifewise and others really not. I would imagine through the things that I've heard that many teachers are not really happy about it, and they're not happy about it because specifically of that disruption.
So I'm wondering if there are any Wiccan churches that might be interested in being recruited to provide some alternative education.
And they're certainly allowed. I would, as Respect Public Schools Washington, would also be opposed to that. We don't like any RTI programs. I will tell you that there is the Satanic Church. They have their own program. It's called HAIL, H-A-I-L. But they operate on the exact same model as Lifewise Academy. I mean, they basically took their process and duplicated it in the hopes that just the threat of it would be enough to shut it down. And unfortunately, not the case. Because they have to find a director. They have to hire a bus or like buy a bus. They have to approach the school district and get permission. They have to have parents who will sign up individually and do it. They have to do all the same hoops and things that Lifewise Academy does. And so far, there's not a lot of people that interested in the Satanic Temples program to get it started.
Rob, maybe you can back me up on this, but obviously, I mean, we all kind of have an idea of what the agenda is. You know, it's this right-wing, evangelical, Christian nationalist agenda. Can this be gleaned and documented from their materials, or are they that clandestine?
Oh, they don't really hide it. They hide it when they talk publicly to like parents, but when you listen to their founder on other podcasts, when you see the fact that they support Moms for Liberty, when you see specific doctrine that they want in Project 2025, and then you hear them talk about it, it's very, very clear.
Okay, we still have questions up. I think we've heard from you both, but I will give it back to you again, Helen. Thank you.
Do the children have a right to refuse religious education?
Yes.
Because when I was 12, the local priest came by and wanted me to accept confirmation, and I promised my father that had just died that I would wait till I was 16. And it actually turned into quite a bit of a fight. Now that wasn't in the school, but if some kid in the school really doesn't, they're gay or they're transsexual or whatever, they don't want to go to some of these, can they say, no, I don't want to go?
So it's really important that you understand that it is opt-in, and the parents have the right to opt their child in. In Everett, their child can opt out on a weekly basis. If the child expresses a desire that they do not want to go, they do not go. Our school administrator and the teachers and whoever's in charge of the front office will not force that child to go. That said, I can tell you that I occasionally volunteer during recess, specifically on Lifewise days, so that my own child doesn't feel quite so left out, and I get to be like the celebrity. That like my child's mom is there. But a child at one point came up to me some time ago with tears in their eyes, and they said, "I'm gonna miss the bus." And I said, "The Lifewise bus?" "Yes, I'm so afraid I can't miss the bus." And I said, "Well, okay, I will help you get to the bus. But are you, like, you seem very nervous. Do you want to go on the bus?" "Oh yes, I want to go on the bus." "Okay, great." But their feet, like, this child was trembling because they were going to be left behind. And it was very clear from their body language and how they spoke about going there. They felt like they had to go. I mean, this child repeatedly said, "I have to be on the bus. I have to be on the bus."
So one thing to keep in mind is they are not supposed to be handing out paperwork. Lifewise is instructed that any flyers that are going home with students about our pizza party next week or whatever goes in an envelope, goes in the backpack. That also includes a graphic novel Bible, which is where the Bibles and backpacks comes from. But what they're doing is they're creating little note cards. And so there is one little girl who, a friend of mine's child, who has said no repeatedly. She does not want to go. Like, the only time she gets uninhibited time to speak with her friends and play with her friends is recess and lunch. Why would I get on a bus and leave campus when that is the only chance the teachers are not making us be quiet? And repeatedly she is receiving requests with a QR code that say, "Come and play with me and Izzy. Come to Lifewise with me and Izzy," or with her friends that she loves, who she sees leave every week. And she's getting these little notes that are like handwritten with a QR code to sign up for Lifewise. And I get that it's opt-in, but when you are 7 years old, you are actively opting out of your friend time because of that. And I would say it's harassment. The school district's definition, it doesn't rise to harassment, but what happens is when you see other children putting on their bright red t-shirts that all match, and then they all leave by the dozen. There was one class, it was not last year, it was 2 years ago, over 50% of the class went to Lifewise. There was a table with one child at lunch, and nobody sitting around him. That's not opting in. He had to opt out.
Excuse me. I taught preschool for a few years, and one day a child was left on the playground, and the class of the teacher and everyone went back. And when they realized what had happened, the teacher was quickly fired. Does Lifewise could that ever happen to an adult with those Lifewise children? If not, it's dangerous.
I mean, we have documented, right, like instances across the country where children have been left behind. And the response from Lifewise has been to deny it, that it ever happened. Once they sort of acknowledge that it happened, we have not heard any sort of consequence for any of them. We've asked Lifewise corporate, like, can you please give us the procedure so that we know and have documentation that you are taking this seriously? We've got no response.
That is so dangerous for those children.
It's incredibly dangerous, yes. And then we have, the director of Washington turning their little anecdote into a story about little hellion children not following the rules because they lost a child for 10 minutes.
I am wondering if this is as prevalent in middle school and high school as it is in elementary school. It seems more challenging with the stacked lunches and things.
Grooming. Well, let's face it. Yes, someone said the right word. Grooming. That's what they're doing. They target elementary school students. And their idea is that as these children grow up, then they can start middle school or high school if there's enough demand. But no, their primary focus are children below the age of discernment. They target elementary schools.
But they are present in middle schools and
Yes, I mean, they do have middle school and high school curriculum, but the numbers of those programs are so few, it's hardly even worth mentioning.
You know, for what it's worth, it does start out very small and seemingly innocuous as far as indoctrinating the small children and vulnerable, but they do work their way up. Because if they can influence the children, they can influence their parents, who influences their siblings, their older children, it goes outwards. And for those of you who are here, I would really encourage you not to just take any information that Jennifer is sharing with you, but to really become involved with this organization, because as many distractions as there are out there right now, this is a very critical situation, because this is going to affect our future generation, which is ultimately going to affect us and what happens with our nation. So for all the things that are going on out there, I would encourage you people to really get involved with Jennifer and Dana's organization, because it's very important.
Thank you so much, Rod. And I would also posit that a lot of attention is given to like Turning Point USA, which targets high school and college. Yes, they are a huge factor and they are a huge threat. But I think too few people see this at elementary school as an equal, or in my opinion, worse threat. Because as Rod was pointing out, when these kids grow up, and when you have been taught that you cannot question authority, that all Jews are awful, that being gay is a terrible sin, when you are taught that if you do not believe the same as they believe, that you are going to hell, and you grow up that way, and then become an adult, I mean, that is their whole point and their whole goal.
So Turning Points USA is with them, I assume, and you say, but aimed at more like high school? And so that's the Charlie Kirk people and all that, but yeah.
I mean, there's a direct through line, right? The whole Christian nationalist movement has many, many faces. Lifewise Academy and other RT-Right programs are just one of those faces.
So one thing that I haven't heard people bring up, and I happen to be an elementary school teacher and I've taught in Everett when this was happening, and now I'm in Snohomish. There are so many protections for people who have a variety of religious backgrounds. For example, I've always had some student whose family was Jehovah's Witness. So when there's a party, like there's accommodations where they stay on campus, or no kids are denied wearing, somebody asked about like religious clothing, like you can wear whatever you need to. There's nothing preventing that. And I have children who come to me with a framework of deep, like religious thinking when they're trying to navigate things in the classroom. And I, as a teacher who am not particularly religious, navigate that with them because, for example, I had a student a couple of years ago whose parents were having a hard time, and he's like the death of them, and I just don't know what to do because he felt so powerless about it. And we just talked through about just in general, like, do you believe that people are allowed to make their own choices? And he said yes. I said, do you think your parents are good people? He said yes. I said, well then that will probably prevail. And then just leave it at that. Like, we as teachers are navigating all of this stuff already. So it's not like kids are being prevented in any way from being able to engage with their religious or cultural backgrounds while they're at school. It's just not the priority of public schools because there's so much free time outside of school to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for pointing that out. And I think, you know, like we have Muslim families at Emerson Elementary, and during the winter they get a lot out early on Friday so that they can go with their families to religious services. There are accommodations for the older students who are fasting during Ramadan. There are so many things that our schools are doing to actively support students of all backgrounds. And when you have something like Lifewise Academy come in, it undermines all of that work.
I'm gonna pass the mic over here as Anita's looking ready to speak. Speak, please, have a mic.